Welcome to the release of TYPO3's version 14, straight from TYPO3's headquarters in Düsseldorf, Germany. Let's get started.
Welcome to the TYPO3 version 14 LTS release presentation. We're your hosts, Tom and Kendall, and we're coming to you from the TYPO3 headquarters in Düsseldorf, Germany. Tom, it's been a minute since we've been in person, so how are you doing?
I'm not too bad at all. It's lovely to see you again, and it's lovely to see you in color as well, as opposed to just talking over Google on our podcasts and other channels as well. So I'm really happy to be here, happy to be in Düsseldorf again, and the fact we're able to present version 14 is really, really cool, and a bit of an honor, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Definitely, and I don't think we could start this presentation without acknowledging that Tom has been a big part of my journey here at TYPO3. It's true. I came to TYPO3 without any previous experience of the CMS, and so he has just been really instrumental in teaching me from the beginning with fresh eyes what it's like to work as an editor in the backend. And so today I'm here to bridge the gap between technical and non-technical audiences and really give the big takeaways for version 14.
I'm happy to kind of represent the core team and the development team and kind of show everyone today all of the really cool new features that are shipping with version 14. And what I love about this release is that there are fundamental changes at nearly every level of the CMS. And by that, I mean editors, integrators, and developers alike will see some really cool new tools and improvements that will enhance their daily workflows every day as well. So we've got a lot of cool things to cover. We've also provided extensive documentation as well. So if there's things we miss out on or the things you want to follow up on, be sure to check out the show notes afterwards as well. But yeah, we've got a lot to cover, some really cool things to cover as well. So yeah.
Definitely. And again, we want to thank everyone for being a part of this exciting release with us. It's an exciting time to be with TYPO3. So without further ado, let's get started and show everyone what they can expect in version 14.
Shall we start with a rundown?
Yes.
The rundown.
So for the rundown, first up, we're going to take a look at version 14's new backend experience and what's changed. Next, we're going to be taking a look at Fluid 5 and Fluid components. Moving along, we're going to cover the link management module, which includes the URL shortener and QR code generator. And then we'll end on an exciting note where Tom will demo Camino, the new out-of-the-box default theme, and we'll also take a look at the future with front-end editing.
Sounds good.
So before we get a tour of the new backend, as I understand it, the target group for version 14 was editors and new users, and a role-based approach was taken with this in mind, meaning that the backend was designed with faster, more straightforward access to everyday tools. And I've heard that this is the biggest UX change in years. Is that true?
Yeah, I think the last time we saw such a big upgrade was back in version 7, which is like 2014, 2015. Okay. So since then, we've had a fairly similar looking backend up until this point. And I think for existing users, it's going to be quite a big culture shock. It's a bit of a change. But you'll see in the demo later on that things are where you expect them to be. But we really thought about the language and the way we describe things in the back end and adjusted them accordingly as well. But yeah, it's going to be a big change for new users, existing users, but I think generally it's all for the better as well. One thing I didn't touch on in the video itself, but within the dashboard module in TYPO3's backend, there are several new widgets there as well to make use of. So when you're using version 14 for the first time, don't forget to check them out.
And was this a community-driven improvement? So was this from the feedback of the community, or what's the origin?
Absolutely. The feedback was quite vocal throughout its development. And if you take a look at the early videos we made for version 14, 14.0 and 14.1, you can slowly see the evolution of the backend taking place. You can see the introduction of the fresh theme, which we'll take a look at. And yeah, you can see it slowly improve over the 4 releases that we've had.
All right, well, let's take a look.
Cool.
The backend.
When logging into the backend for the first time, the most obvious thing you're going to notice is the introduction of the new default theme and the reorganization of the module menus on the left-hand side. Web now reads as content, Files now reads as media, and Admin Tools now reads as administration. And of course, we have a completely new set of custom icons used throughout the backend. We also have the new link management section found within the Sites module, and we'll take a closer look at that later on. The doc header has been improved to provide a more consistent experience regardless of which module you're using. We now have the breadcrumb, which tells me exactly where I am, and a new language selector on the right-hand side. Next up is a major new feature that improves the way we manage both content and pages in the backend without disrupting our workflow. So I'm working on this page, and I need to make some changes to the page itself. I need to add some SEO information before I forget. In previous versions of TYPO3, I would simply find the Edit Page Properties button. A new window would load, and I would make my changes, hit save, and then carry on with my original task. With 14 LTS, we now have something called context-aware editing, where I again select the Edit Page Properties button, but this time, an overlay appears that allows me to quickly make my changes and carry on with my original task. And if I need more room, I simply switch to full view. Context-aware editing also applies to content elements. The same principle applies. I edit my content, make my changes, and carry on. Next, we need to talk about the purple elephant in the room. Version 14 ships with 3 back-end themes: Fresh, Modern, and my favourite, Classic. Right now, I'm using the Fresh theme, but I can easily switch between themes via user settings. And of course, all 3 back-end themes support both light and dark mode. Let's head to the back end. This time, you may have noticed something different at the top of my screen. The user interface for the Workspaces module has been significantly improved, making it easier to see which workspace you are using and toggle between them faster. In my example, my live workspace is red for danger, and in my case, my draft workspace is set to yellow. It's up to you to decide which color you'd like to use. Also note that switching between workspaces is done via the selector on the left-hand side, and it's super quick. One thing that's at the heart of version 14 is the belief that creating and managing both pages and content should be easy and as intuitive as possible, especially for new users. And the all-new page creation wizard is a perfect example of this. Let's take a look. We have a new page button just above the page tree. And from here, I can add pages and other records to my tree using the new wizard. In my example, I want a new page to sit under Contact Us. So, the first thing I need to do is decide where I want it placed. Then, I need to decide what I'm going to add. It could be a shortcut or a folder, but in my case, it's just a standard page. I then give it a name, and I can also preview its URL. I can also decide whether this page will be enabled once I've created it. I can double check everything, and even go back and make changes if need be. And my page is created. From here, I can either create another new page or close the wizard. And that is a quick overview of some of the new features and improvements found in TYPO3's all-new backend. Back to you, Kendall.
Okay, so you're right. After seeing the current demo of the backend, I can see all of the iterations that have led us to where we're at. And I just have to flag one thing for an everyday user as myself. The biggest change that I noticed was the renaming of the file list, a place that I frequent very often in the backend. So it's now media. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it makes more sense for
It
it
does.
to be called media. I prefer file list, but that's just me being old and awkward. But yeah, media and content in the page module, those modules being renamed, I think really make it easier for new users to find things they need to find, or which they will find in previous CMSs. It just makes it easier to find these things and identify where they want to be in the CMS as well. So yeah, that's the all-new backend. I think for existing users like myself, it's a bit of a change, but I think it's for the better. I think language is really important within a CMS, and the way we describe and label things is critical. And I think the changes that have been made in version 14 really enhance that as well. One thing I didn't touch on in the video was the introduction of new dashboard widgets as well. So if you're making use of the dashboard module, don't forget to check out the new widgets as well. And something else I try to remind people is if you don't like the purple fresh theme, there are 2 others to choose from as well. So relax. If you like the classic theme, just go ahead and enable it, and you don't have to see the purple theme again. It's okay.
Well, thank you, Tom. Now let's move on to our next topic, which is Fluid.
Next up, Fluid.
So before we get started, for our marketers and editors watching, Tom, what is Fluid? And you know I'm an expert and I could explain it, but I think everyone would rather hear it from you.
So Fluid is TYPO3's default templating engine. And when we talk about templating engines, we're essentially talking about something that combines the content we create and add in TYPO3's backend with our visual templates. And to stay on a water-based theme, you could argue it's the glue that merges our content with our design templates, which we then see in the front end when we view our TYPO3 websites. Let's start with some of the smaller changes in Fluid 5. Fluid 5 now supports CData sections, enabling you to have inline blocks of CSS and JavaScript in your templates. The way we register global namespaces has also been improved, making it easier to call view helpers in our projects. In the past, template file names always had to start with a capital letter. This is no longer a requirement, and instead you can have a file name that begins with a lowercase letter. In addition, we have new support for dedicated extensions, for example, using fluid.html or even fluid.txt for our template names. Next, we have view helpers, and we've got quite a few new ones in version 5. All of these new view helpers have also been backported to Fluid version 4, meaning projects that are using TYPO3 version 13 can also make use of these new view helpers. And finally, React and Vue developers will feel right at home with Fluid components, a new way of building strict, safe components without the need to write a single line of PHP in our view helpers. And that's Fluid 5 shipping with TYPO3 version 14.
And that's exactly how I need it explained to me in the simplest of terms. So 2 years ago, we were talking about headless, and I feel like we're at a place now where people have choices.
Absolutely. With headless and Fluid, we're essentially giving users more choice. So if people want to use a headless approach for their front end, they're more than welcome to, but we still have Fluid, which is our primary templating engine in TYPO3, and that's going to continue to receive updates in the near future as well. But ultimately, we're saying to users, there's more than one way to build out your front end in Typo, both of which are supported going forward as well. So I'm happy.
Who doesn't love having choices? So if you want to learn more about changes in Fluid 5, check out the show notes, as we're going to link to the content written by Simon Pretorius that will go in depth and keep you updated.
Okay, what's next?
What's new in link management?
So now let's talk about link management. And before we get into this, I have to say, as an editor myself, that these two features that we're going to talk about are the most useful to me. Having to outsource QR codes or shorten URLs via a third-party tool, it's just an extra step in my workload that's quite time-consuming. So these features in version 14 really empower editors and everyday users to have a more consistent UI experience and really get work out the door. So what are your thoughts going into this? And
I always say to people, it's there by default. If you need to use it, it's there. If you don't need to use it, it's there waiting for you if you might need it in the future as well. And I really like that with TYPO3. And I think we talk about it. I don't think we talk about it enough, if I'm honest with you. And because this is a core feature with TYPO3 now, we know it's going to continue to receive updates, and it'll have rock solid documentation as well. So that's what I really like about this in particular.
I've seen it demoed in real time, but let's give everyone else a look.
I'm going to give an even better demo. So let's take a look.
Yep.
You often hear us talk about how TYPO3 is feature complete right out of the box. Content versioning, user management, workspaces, forms, and first-class multi-language support are powerful tools that ship with TYPO3. Let's take a look at these new tools coming forward in version 14. So I'm about to start getting ready for my company's Christmas marketing campaign, and I've got new print material that is ready to be sent out to my printer. And what I want to do is generate a QR code so that when potential customers scan the code, they are sent to a dedicated Christmas campaign page in my TYPO3 installation. So we're going to head over to link management found within the sites module. And we're looking for the QR code tool. And we're going to create a new QR code. Next, I need to specify which page in the page tree my code will point to. I can also disable my QR code and set publish and expiration dates using the Access tab. And I can leave notes for my colleagues in the Notes tab. Once I've saved my changes, I can then download my QR code either as an SVG or PNG with several different preset sizes available. Upon saving my changes, I'm then shown the unique URL that has been generated for my QR code. So what happens after Christmas when my campaign is finished and I've got several hundred flyers out in the wild? All I need to do is go back in and change where my QR code points to in my page tree. It could be a new campaign page ready for next Christmas, but in my example, I'm going to have it point back to my homepage. So that's QR codes. Let's take a look at another new feature found within link management. I have a page in my page tree, and it's 3 levels down. And because of that, the URL for it is rather long, and I need something a little shorter that I can share with clients. What I can do is use the short URL tool found within link management to generate a simple short URL. First, I need to select my domain and then generate my random string of text. Then, I select which page in the tree I'd like served. And if I really want to, I can also manually set the URL, but be careful when doing this. And just like QR codes, I can also set a publish and expiration date and leave notes for other back-end users. Both of these tools are part of the redirect system extension, so make sure to have the extension installed and activated. Back to you, Kendall.
So in your demo, did I see correctly that the CEO of the Christmas company is me?
That's correct.
Okay. And the title of Chief of Sarcasm or Head of Sarcasm is you?
Well.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I will say, making demo videos is really hard, and you need to think of like fictitious companies and things to name. So sometimes I panic and I start to dream. So sometimes you might see some weird stuff in my videos. But one thing, when we talk about these 2 new features, I think in and of themselves, these features are really good. But I think for me personally, I'm going to see a lot more value with these features in client pitches. And I've been in so many pitches with clients where you kind of come into the end of the presentation, people are starting to get a bit tired. And for me, there's nothing better at the end of a presentation to say, oh, by the way, we have these extra features in TYPO3 ready for you to use. So here is an option to generate QR codes out of the box. Here's an option to shorten URLs. I think what I tend to talk about a lot with TYPO3 is the fact that it's feature complete out of the box. So we've got version management, we've got content management, forms, user permissions, first-class multi-language support. And these 2 tools add to that and adds this narrative that you can essentially install TYPO3. 99% of the tasks you need to do, that functionality is built into the core, and all you need to do is turn it on. And because these are core features, we know that they'll have rock-solid support and first-class documentation as well. So these 2 features really build on that narrative for us. And yeah, it makes my job and makes other people's jobs really easy when pitching to clients as well. No extra fees, no extra modules to pay for, just turn it on. If you don't need it today, it's absolutely fine. If you need it in 6 months' time, just turn it on and it's yours. Yeah, I really like it. I cleared the cache and it worked. Wild.
Who knew?
Guten Tag, TYPO3 GmbH. Mein Name is Tom. Yeah. I can't speak German.
Hello? Ah, verstehe. Okay, alles klar. I can't repeat what they said, but what I can say is that it's another call for a default theme.
Really?
They want an out-of-the-box theme.
I thought they were complaining about our acting skills. Okay, yeah, we need a default theme.
Brand new, the Camino theme.
So speaking of features that will impress in pitches, let's transition to the final section of the version 14 presentation, which is Camino and front-end editing. So a common complaint we've received over the years is that TYPO3 never ships with a default theme. And our dear friend and TYPO3 core team lead, Benny Mack, has been receiving this feedback for quite some time.
Yeah, and it's a legitimate request. You know, there are a number of reasons why you'd like to have a theme ready for you straight after installing TYPO3. It could be because you want to set up a microsite really quick for a project, or it could be that you're doing some TYPO3 training and you need a front end there. Yeah, there's loads of different reasons why you'd need that there. So finally, we can tell our users that we have that support.
So Camino is a standalone theme that requires zero setup, and it's as I understand, it's ideal if you want to create a simple website with minimal fuss and without worrying about templating. So, well, actually, can we take a look while we're together at what Camino offers? I want to give viewers an example of what a default theme is and how we can customize things easily and accessibly.
Let's take a look.
So, Tom, in theory, new users working with TYPO3 for the first time could customize this independently. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's built with them in mind, if I'm being honest. And as well as it being built for new users, there are a number of different safeguards built in as well. So what we mean by that is we don't want new users adding forms to the footer or putting content in places where it shouldn't be. And Camino makes use of some of the new features in 14 to actually enable that feature in the back end. And we'll touch on that in the demo, which is coming up next.
Yeah, let's take a look.
When installing TYPO3 for the first time, users will now have the option to enable Camino during initial setup. And for existing installations, it's just a matter of installing the theme and activating it. Camino ships with 3 different backend layouts: content full width, content with sidebar, and start page. Camino is specifically designed for small, simple websites with new users in mind. With it, we have a range of custom content elements that make use of the new allowed content types. This feature means you don't have to worry about new users accidentally inserting a web form into a footer or adding a large image banner to the middle of a page. The start page backend layout has 3 distinct areas: hero, content, and footer. For the hero section, I can only add a hero or banner content element. These are typically full width and contain a background image and large header text. The content area is where I add my regular page content, such as text and images and forms. And the footer section is where I can add links to pages in my site and also add links to my social media channels, as well as showing my own custom logo. Because I'm using the start page at the root of my site, any content added to my footer will persist to all pages inside it, meaning I don't have to add my social media links and copyright to every page in my site. The content full width and content sidebar backend layout only contain areas where you can add regular page content. So that's pages and content. Next, I want to show you how we can customize the Camino theme itself. Now, if caramel cream isn't your thing and your name isn't Camino, you might want to consider changing the color used in your site and also setting a custom logo. Let's find out. Head over to Sites and then select Edit Site Settings and look for Camino. Here, I have 4 different colors to choose from, and I can also upload my own logo. And it's as easy as that. The Camino theme also has extensive documentation that's been written for human beings by yours truly. Check out the show notes below for more information. And that's Camino, our new default theme for TYPO3. The way we create and edit content has always been the same. We add our content, make a few edits, clear the cache, and preview our changes in another browser tab or window. But would it be easier, especially for new users, to be able to create content and see how it looks and feels on the page itself without having to leave the backend? Well, courtesy of Matthias Vogel and his work, this is now a reality with the introduction of visual editing. Let's head to the backend, this time with visual editing enabled. Right now, I'm in the traditional layout module. The visual editor can be found here in the editor module. Let's go ahead and make changes to our start page. If I want to alter the text, I simply click or select it and start making my changes. And my changes are then reflected in real time. And as always, don't forget to save any changes, assuming you don't have autosave enabled. When I add a new text content element, placeholder text is inserted for me and disappears once I start writing. And of course, I have access to the rich text editor. And if I want to change the order of something, I simply drag it to its new location. Also note that images and other content elements can't be edited using the visual editor just yet. And that's a preview of the visual editor extension. Be sure to check out the show notes to find out more. Kendall, back to you.
Okay, so the default theme, Camino, that's huge. And at least from my perspective, it seems like it removes the barrier to entry for TYPO3, especially, as we said, for new users. So it was helpful in your demo to see just how accessible it is and how customizable, from changing the colors to renaming. It's just a solid framework to get you started. And now I want to talk about front-end editing, which is life-changing, at least in my case, having to manually refresh and toggle between the browser to see my edits. It's become a standard practice, but having the option to see live edits, that's a huge step forward. That really makes a difference.
Yeah, I think it ties back into this idea of giving users choice. So if you're comfortable using TYPO3's backend in the traditional way, you can carry on doing that. But if, for example, you have some new editors or people who come into the CMS for the first time, they're likely to respond better to visual editing instead of the conventional way. Yeah, we're giving people the choice to decide how they want to manage and edit their content. And I remember the first time I saw visual editing, I kind of thought to myself, this is really cool, but I don't think I'll use this. But then I kind of realized that this feature isn't for me. This feature is exactly what we're talking about, making it easier for new users coming into the TYPO3 project to use our product. And I think this is a really cool example of that. We've identified that users want to see their changes in real time in front of their design templates. And we've come through with this fantastic feature. So yeah, I'm really happy with it.
I am part of that audience. And also, I think we should address the controversy, which is front-end editing versus visual editing. Are they synonymous? I
think we had front-end editing in previous versions of TYPO3, but I must be explicit and say that this is visual editing. Okay. But I think people understand that naming things is hard. Naming things in TYPO3 is also very hard as well. So I think we've done pretty good today. And we've got our names almost right.
So agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Outro.
Well, all good things must come to an end, which brings us to the end of our TYPO3 version 14 LTS presentation. And we've covered a lot today, from taking you through a completely revamped backend experience to demoing tools that are going to help editors, integrators, developers alike. So what stands out to me, though, the most in version 14 is how much of this release has been shaped by user feedback. So it's not just about the new features. It's really about what makes TYPO3 work better for the people who use it every day, which I think is what makes it so special. And the community, our community, is of course at the heart of those improvements. So by saying that, we can't conclude the presentation without saying a big thank you to the community and everyone who contributed to version 14.
Yeah, and part of producing today's video and producing all of the video and written content for version 13, I've had the pleasure of talking to developers throughout the community who've contributed to version 14. And I think what really stands out is their passion and drive for this project. And I think we're at a turning point within TYPO3 in itself, where we're seeing the next generation of developers and contributors coming forward. And we're seeing that with version 14. We've got existing developers helping new users contribute, and we've got existing or long-term developers contributing some fantastic features as well. So I'm really happy about where the project is and how far we've come in the last 3 years in particular. But there's lots to be proud of, and equally there's lots to look forward to in the future as well.
Definitely. Well, a big thank you to everyone who joined us today and is celebrating all across the world, really, with us for version 14. So looking forward to seeing them again for version 15.
I think we need to decide what we're going to do for our party tonight as well. So
yeah.
Probably go out, paint the town.
Paint the town, that's right.
Oh.